Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Let me see if I, okay. So we got, let's see, who else? Have 11 people so far. Can you guys give me the thumbs up if you're hearing everything? Awesome. Sweet. All right, I think we can start. It's 9:30 on the dot. So let's, I'm gonna share the screen here. And do you guys have Maya installed or like ZBrush, everything ready to go, or, you know, awesome? Oh, sorry, son. Oh man, it's okay. But you're gonna watch the video later, right? And do it. Okay, sweet, awesome. So Sven was talking to me today actually, and he was saying like maybe it would be cool like if people introduce themselves. But the thing is like I really want to dig in and you know spend most of the time like already doing some work, and we all kind of know each other from the forums and from Instagram and other places, right? And but I don't mind if you guys want to talk a little bit about yourselves. You know, like once I unmute you, it's gonna happen in about 1 hour, and then you're gonna be unmuted, and you can you know we can go through the stuff I'm gonna be talking today, and maybe we can talk a little bit about ourselves, or if that's too much, we can just like keep working, you know, whatever we decide together. Let me see, we have 12 now. Just add him as well. I'm gonna share my screen here. Let's go and see if you're getting everything from here. So today we're gonna be talking about likeness, right? And the first thing I'm gonna have to talk about likeness is the crazy cameras, right? You probably saw those images online. They are all kind of the same deal. It's showing like a portraits of people, you know, with lenses, different lenses. So like between 24 millimeters, even like 10 millimeters, 85, all kinds of different lenses. And most of you guys work professionally, right? Like in studios. And then if you're working with digital doubles, normally what we get is like they take a very nice picture from multiple angles using the same camera lens. Sometimes it's like using a light stage, right? Like so we have a kind of the dome of lights and cameras. And then they capture everything. They capture the scan, and they capture all those images from different angles, right? Like so they can assemble the textures together later on. And so everything is pretty precise, right? Like if you get all those images, if you transform them into a bunch of different background images, you know, it's like some blueprints, you're gonna be able to reconstruct that image, that face, like with certain precision, right? But that's like a prepared, precise environment you're gonna have, right? Like it's all with the same lens and everything. But when you're working with portraits from pictures from the internet, it's always very tricky. Oh, let me just admit everybody. So it's very tricky to do that. I'm just gonna keep the list in here so I can actually see when people are entering. It's very tricky because you're looking at different pictures from like multiple angles. So I have a couple here. I'm gonna start today doing you know, working with Stan Winston, and I tried to find pictures, of course, like profile, 3/4, and front. But if you can find anything like from the bottom, top, any angles are always helpful for us to, you know, see things more clearly. But in his case here, you can see those pictures are very random. God knows what kind of lens people were using when they took those pictures. You know, there's another one here. So you can see like his face goes from a little bit more narrow to more wide. So like when the face is a little wider like that, normally the ears are very, you know, visible. In this case here, normally is a very flat lens, right? If it's a portrait, normally like you can try to guess. And when it's normally like a head and shoulders or head all the way to chest like that, normally what photographers use like for like a professional portrait would be something like an 85 millimeters all the way to, you know, if all the way to 200 actually, if they want to keep it, make it even more flat. but I would say like between 85 and 135 would be more ideal for this, like head and shoulders. Then if you go all the way to the waistline, then I would say like more like a 50 millimeters, like 60, whatever. And then for a full body, like 50 or 35, something like that. So by deduction, if it's something like this doesn't look like a studio picture, so it's probably like an event. And if he's in an event like that, then probably like there's some paparazzi or some person from the media taking pictures of him from a certain distance because they don't want to be invasive. So probably like in this case here, someone has like, I don't know, like maybe like a 70-200 millimeters, and then it's from afar and taking a picture, so you can see it's a little bit more flat. In this case here, maybe the person was a little bit closer, right? It's kind of like all candid pictures. But it's very hard to tell, it's like it can be like a 50 to 85 again, or it can be like a zoom lens. And in this case, it's going to be like very, let's see. Oh, I'm just paying attention here if someone else is joining. So it's always like a deduction thing, right? And the thing about the likeness doing this way, it's actually, I do it almost like a puzzle, right? Like I consider this kind of like a puzzle for me, because you have to keep working on it. And it doesn't happen like straight away. I'm going to be chasing the likeness for the next couple of days. And probably like all the way to the end, I'm going to be still like chasing the likeness. Unlike what we do, the work is based on a scan, right? Like we do based on the scan, it's basically like everything is in there, and you just have to project the information and then refine it, and then it's fine. But in this case here, it's always a matter of like finding like landmarks as everything, right? Like if you're working with the anatomy of the skull, for example, you're going to be looking for landmarks. And I like peculiar faces. For example, like I like faces that are kind of like unusual. He has this interesting smile that almost looks like a heart, like he has the top lip here, like he goes, like the middle part goes down and then up, a little bit of a Joker, but with that little dent in there. And of course, like the big nose, right? That kind of reminds me of mine. I'm gonna get there. I'm still young. And then of course, like the structure of the skull, right? Like the forehead, very interesting here. And it's interesting. Like if you start studying the skull of like male and female, you're gonna see the differences. It's like in terms of the ridge in here, like in the male, it's much more pronounced in the male, and the angle as well of the forehead. You're going to start seeing like in the case of the female is going to be a little bit more flat, right? Like it goes forward. And in the case of a male is more sloped. But of course, like there are all kinds of exceptions for any of those rules. Normally we read all those things in books, it's like, oh, the male is like this and blah, blah, blah. And then when you start looking at scans of people, and there's a guy actually who posts a lot of scans. Let me see if I can find it here. Let me share with you guys. This is very interesting. If you don't follow him, I think you should, because he doesn't have a lot of followers. But let me just find it here. Let's see, Joe. Where is it? Let's see. Okay, so I found it. So this guy here, I'm going to share. So his nickname is this, Joe Slockbower, right? And then he has this massive collection of scans. So he keeps posting those things like almost like every day. So you can see like the actor and the cast, right? Like the live cast, or sometimes I think they are all live cast. I don't think he has scans. It's just like live cast, and they are all like plaster. And they have like multiple angles like as well like that. And he always posts as a little teaser, So he posts the likeness, right? And then he asks like, who is this person, before he posts the picture of the person, right? In this case here, revealing who he is, right? The Green Goblin himself, Willem Dafoe. So and then he keeps doing this, like he has the Bruce Lee one, he has everything. He has like lots of actors. They're all famous people. He did a lot of work, I think, with those guys, and he collects those live casts. So for example, like this kind of face, right? Like you look at how beautiful she is, and you look like how weird it looks in here. So that's the thing, it's like working with live casts at ILM, I learned that you cannot trust them that much. I mean, like normally when we get data, we get the scan data, which is basically from the light stage, which is like non-contact, right? So you're gonna have this dome of lights and cameras, and everything is gonna be non-contact. So we're gonna get like a one-to-one precise representation of the face. But when you have a cast like that, if you ever seen like how they create those casts, it's basically like they keep like putting up tons of like plaster and things accumulated on top of the face in order to take that and make a mold and then fill it up later. And then when you do this, it ends up that you have something that like all that compression that happens on top of the face, it ends like distorting a little bit. So we have a weight of all the material on top deposited on top, and then all of a sudden like you lose a little bit of the likeness. And of course, like when you're talking about the female, right, then you're gonna have like the makeup that's very deceiving as well. You've seen like all those videos with the Asian girls, right, that they have like all this makeup, and then they start like removing all this stuff, and all of a sudden they look anything like the face they're showing before. So the makeup makes a lot of difference as well. If I was to model her the way she's smiling right here, I would probably model like this nose completely different from what I'm seeing right here from the mold, right? And I noticed this a lot. So for example, like I don't have a scan of the guys I'm modeling right now, but I'm pretty sure like I'm off when it comes like to the, you know, there's no way to be precise without seeing the actual gray shaded version of the face, right? So there's a lot of shadows that happen, you know, it's like there are spots, for example, like if someone has a little bit of darker spots under their eyes, for example, if the guy is super tired, didn't sleep, he's gonna have like this dark circles around his eyes. And then when you're looking at that with a texture, you're gonna start like, oh, this looks very deep. So you're gonna start trying to model that, like the eye bags a little bit deeper than you should, you know? So it's always a chase. You're gonna have to look at portraits under different lighting situations. And of course, like if it's a portrait made in a studio, the intention is to actually remove all the imperfections and make everything more flat. So basically, like you're not gonna get like very dramatic shadows like in this case here, right? That you can see like it's kind of like a spotlight from the top, right? And you see everything in there. But in the case of a portrait, like done in the studio, you're gonna see probably gonna be very flat. In this case here, for example, like his face, you cannot see a lot of shadows in here because it looks like kind of daylight, and they are using like probably like a flashlight. You can see the reflection in there to actually fill up, right? Like put some lighting on his face in there. So to understand the forms in here is very hard. You see the reflections and all this stuff, and then all of a sudden you're gonna look like, oh, maybe this nose here, it looks thinner than it actually is, and it probably is. So you start looking under other lights, and then you're gonna start seeing like different things, you know. So so for portraits based on pictures like that, there is no formula you can possibly use, because everything, like I said, like it's different camera angles, and it's always a chase. What we can try to do is to train our eyes, and I think that this is the most important part of this whole class. It's like exercising, like training your eyes, you know, because like I said, there's nothing is gonna ever replace like scan data, right? Because that's the precise representation of the form right there. But then at the same time, sometimes you have like to add detail where there's no detail. Like you get like a scan that's like, for example, the face and the chest or whatever, and you don't have the information for the rest of it. And if you don't have a trained eye to actually observe the form and try to recreate the detail to fill up those gaps, then you're kind of in trouble. You know, it's like you're gonna be completely dependent on the scans. So I think like the most important part of this entire thing is to actually train your eye to observe. And so I try to force myself when I do those portraits by trying to nail it in the expression they are. So for example, like if I'm picking a portrait of Stan Winston, I don't want to do a portrait of him with closed mouth. That's why I modeled the teeth the other day. I want to be able to represent him because this is the most iconic face of Stan Winston, you know. And when you're trying to capture a portrait, you're not simply like trying to represent the form the way it is. You're trying to capture the essence of the character, right? In the case of like, if I go back here to my some of the stuff I was working recently, right? So there are different things here. This one is a model I started a long time ago, and it's a likeness based on a painting of James Bama. And then there is this Giger that's still in progress. Like the hair is pretty crappy right now, still working on it. And then there is this Michelangelo, right? And every single one of them, you're gonna notice they have different stories to tell. Even though it's just a still, I try to keep I try to tell the story, you know. It's like based on everything I read about the guys, and of course, like looking at the pictures. In the case of Michelangelo, I mean, there's very little about the guy, and everything I know about him is the stuff I read about him, and for example, like the few pictures that you can see, like from paintings and drawings of him, including some of self-portraits that he did. So at the end of the day, this is all idealization, right? Like it's not scanned data. We are trying to recreate a character, and specifically like an alive character. We want to make sure you can give life to those characters, you know. Otherwise, we're just going to be exercising like precision, but like scan data precision kind of thing, but without actually making those characters communicate, right? Like, because that's the, I think, ultimate intention when you're an artist, is to actually try to communicate with your audience. So for each one of those guys, like I said, I try to, you know, understand a little bit of the story behind their lives or whatever. And then, of course, combined with this crisscrossing of information, you know, trying to find a way to, let me just double check here. Okay, I'm recording. Okay. Just to make sure I'm recording everything. So at this point here, I don't know if you guys received the email I sent with the little file. This is totally up to you guys if you want to use it or not. Like I said in the first meeting, so I sent this one to you guys today, right? And of course, like, it's not a perfect model or anything. I kind of rushed it to have something, but it's good enough for starting something, you know. Ideally would be like start from a sphere or a cube or something like that, to avoid contamination of the form. And by that I mean, like, when you have something already there, we try to normally, like, our brain goes a little bit lazy, you know. You kind of like, oh yeah, the eye looks like it's fairly in the correct position. It's probably not. It's probably totally off. And then we kind of like don't move stuff enough. But to speed things up here for the class, I have this one, and I gave you guys the option to start from it as well. So let me just admit Josh here. And then, so I'm going to start with this guy here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just move all my references to the other screen. And that's the way I normally work. I'm going to keep working on those forms for a little bit. And then once I'm very much like maybe 2 days or so into the sculpture, maybe like longer than that, maybe like 3 days, then I'm going to start actually checking all the proportions. Because what happens, like, when you sculpt like with the real clay, right? Like you have to nail the basic forms, like the primary forms from the get-go. You cannot add detail before you actually have all those forms all nailed. But when we are working with CG, the great advantage of it is that you can keep working on the primary forms even after you start adding detail, as long as it's not like drastically different, right? So that's my intention here. I'm going to start sculpting, and I'm going to get some of the areas I'm going to be focusing, going to be like, of course, like the main thing's going to be the facial expression. So I'm going to roughly block the facial expression and then go element by element. Normally I go a little bit, I know that some people actually try to nail like all the way, like the eyes until they look perfect. I never do that. I kind of like approximate them, and then I move to some other area and then approximate it and go to another one. And then I keep like revisiting kind of like in a circular kind of, way, kind of revisiting everything around the face until I get the likeness more like it. So because when you lose yourself too much into one area, you kind of lose the notion of the whole, right? So I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to keep those guys in here. And I just have to make sure that I can unmute people here as they enter, because I did this thing, and I think I have to approve each one by hand. I'm going to try to figure it out how to do that automatically next time. So I'm gonna keep like on the side, I'm gonna use this one here that's kind of like not quite 3/4, but give me a little bit more information about the volume of the cheeks in here. The areas of problematic areas normally when you don't have all the angles are normally like this brow ridge, the brow ridge like on the side when you turn to 3/4. Sometimes it's hard to predict what's the volume of this. You know, it's like looking from the side looks like one thing, from the front is another thing, but 3/4 sometimes either it gets like too volumetric or not volumetric at all. And then of course like the cheeks as well, you know, as you spin around you start losing some of the detail. So instead of like using the front, I'm going to try to start with the 3/4 a little bit, and then I'm going to use this one here as well, the side, and it's going to be very loose, and we're going to see how much we can get. Probably like not much. So let's start here. Let me try to get, let me set up all my brushes. I'm one of those guys, like someone asked, like I don't have like a custom interface that's fancy. It's just like the regular ZBrush interface, so it's easy to figure it out what's going on in there. It's not like you guys gonna be lost. So everything is where they are supposed to be. And I don't have like, for example, like I don't use the DEM standard because it has a little bit of a pinch in it. And for some reason, I always get lazy and I always end up making my own brush. So I start normally like with the regular default standard. And then I use this Alpha 39 here. That's my go-to one for some reason. And I normally create this little sharp point. Not too sharp, otherwise it gets too small, but around here. And then the stroke by default is actually 0.2, but here I'm using 0.02 for the lazy step. Is the quality of the image for you guys? Can you read all the menus and everything? Sweet. Okay. So and then with that guy, I can start like, for example, if I create like put an intensity a little bit higher in here, maybe like 14 or so. Then when you carve, you can get like very sharp, like a pointy kind of. Let's make a little bit less than that, like 9. So I can get like something like easy to block, you know, it's like if I'm blocking some forms. And don't be afraid like to actually write and use this as a clay piece, right? So sometimes you can just like, you know, like define like, you know, lines and things like that to try to find the proportions, right? So let's start with this. So the other thing that's happening with Stan here is that most of my pictures have glasses. He's wearing glasses. So let me just set up my alarm here because in about half an hour I'm going to open for you guys to talk. And I'm going to start like very loosely here. I'm going to start with the eyes. This model here, the topology is not ideal, but the thing is like we're going to be retopologizing later. So the first thing I'm going to try here, he has like very kind of like a long top eyelids. So he starts pretty high up there. So I'm going to raise this area. And I'm going to have to bring it down later because of the, he has the, you know, it's like as you age, you're going to, the gravity is going to start working against you in there. And let me just bring this light down a little bit, more like frontal, I guess. So I can actually get in there a little bit more. Another way to do that's like if you go to render and then you have the preview shadows in here, you can always like reduce that so you can actually see a little bit more of the form so it doesn't get too deep, right? So I'm gonna put like a 0 in there so I can see what's going on there a bit better. So I'm gonna just add a little bit more of depth in here. You're gonna notice the model I gave you guys, it's not like precise at all. You're gonna have to, you know, move things around, and that's good. Oh, one thing before we start this, actually, I can, let's do something here. I gave you this model to you guys fairly in a good scale, but, okay, let me admit it. Why is he falling? He's falling all the time for some reason. Joshua is actually falling, like I keep adding him and he falls back. Huh, interesting. I'm gonna keep an eye on that. Okay, so the scale of the model is important. When you work in a studio, for example, studios have different pipelines, and at ILM, like just to keep a legacy with the old software we used to use at ILM was Softimage back in the day. If you ever watched like those documentaries about Jurassic Park, they used like Softimage back in the day. So we still use some kind of legacy pipeline, and that means that the scale that we use is not real world scale. It's kind of like it's a conversion. So like 1 foot is 1 centimeter or something like that. It's kind of wacky. But it works in our pipeline because all the tools are meant to be used that way. But since we are using like off-the-shelf stuff, right? We want to make sure you have everything world scale, like real world scale. So first thing you're going to do, you're going to export this head here. And you can do the same with the model that I sent to you guys. I'm going to just export this one. It's a 386 in the second subdivision level. So I'm going to export it. And let's do head. Let's do head new. All right. So head new. So I'm going to export it out of ZBrush. And I'm going to go to Maya. Oh, this is the render I was doing over the weekend, by the way. Still working on it. You see the hair is a mess right now, but this is the progress of the Michelangelo. So let me just hide everything here. And let's see. Let's import first the model. I'm going to get the head in here. You're going to see it proportionally. It's going to be similar to what I have in there. Whoa. So I'm going to get that. So that's the head. And then I'm going to go to the front view in here in Maya, right? And we're going to try and see what's the scale of the head. There's this button here in Maya. It's a shortcut actually for your settings preferences, right? So you click this one here. And then if you go under settings right here, you're going to notice like there is all the working units here. And by default, I think it's like centimeters. But for some reason, since I moved to the United States, I started using inches, which never makes any sense to me. I like metric totally better than this. But, the measurements and everything, we're kind of learning inches this day. So I switched to inches in here from centimeters. So if I have centimeters, you see like the grid's going to change, right? You can see like the number of squares here is big, it's more dense. And then if I go back to inches here, now I have less of them. And then let's measure this head here. I'm going to create. So you go to create, and then there is a menu here, measure tools, and then distance tool. I'm going to just click this one here and keep it docked. So distance tool, and I'm going to click right here in the middle, one click, and then with shift, you press shift, and then you click again, and you can click right here. Actually, what's going to happen here is that he has open mouth, right? If he has open mouth, that means that his jaw is open as well. So his jaw is not locked in there. The teeth is not touching each other. So I'm going to have to figure it out, like, of course, not with extreme precision here because you don't need that. But this distance between the top lip and the bottom lip here, I'm going to have to kind of discount it just to get, like, imagine that this jaw is closed, for example. So I'm going to stop around here, right? And then I'm going to select everything. And I'm going to select everything here in the middle. So I can actually have access to just the controls here, right? The constraints. So at this point here, you can see the height of the head is 9.66 inches, which is a little bit too big. So the model you have in there, you can keep working on it and do this later. But it would be important for you guys to do this at some point. I'm actually glad I left a little bit off so you can actually do this. So before you start going too deep with the likeness, I would actually recommend you guys to get everything in proportion first, right? So I'm going to click the face, and then I have my little menu in here. That's everything is like it's my custom menu, but you can access it as well, like under edit if you want to do. And under modify, so you have the transformation tools. You can actually scale, do all kinds of stuff, and you can reset transformations. You can center pivot. So all those things here, I actually created shortcuts for myself here in my custom shelf. So I'm going to just click center. So now my pivot's right here in the middle. I can actually grow so you can see it. And then if you press insert, now you can actually move it, right? So you're going to move it to the top of the head. We're going to press insert again. And now I'm going to scale the head down. First, before I do this, I'm going to have to find out what's the scale of an actual head in average. And by Googling it, you can actually figure it out that the height of a head in average should be between 8 and 9 inches. So if we consider like an average of 8.5, let's work with that. So you see like the number changing in there when I go up and down. See the number right here? It's gonna change. So I'm gonna go to 8.5. So 8. Doesn't need to be precise, just approximate. So 8.51. So that's basically like how much I have to shrink. So let me go back here and let's scale it to around there. So again, discounting the little piece of the chin because I have to close the jaw. So let's say right here, that's about right. So that's the size of the head now. So that should be like an average, good start, good scale to start. So I'm just gonna freeze, reset. So basically, like again, if you are not very familiar with Maya, you can go to here under transformation under reset transformations. If you click this little square, the little box, you're gonna have access to the scale, rotate, and translate, right? So all those things you're gonna find over there. So you just have to create like shortcuts in your own shells. And then, so in this case here, I'm gonna just export this model back. Export selection, gonna click the little box. Gonna make sure I have OBJ selected in here. ZBrush accepts Maya ASCII as well, but I'm gonna just like export OBJ. And then I'm gonna do, oh, before I go further, you remember when I imported this model in here? One thing I explained, like in the first one, the introduction, is that the first thing you have to do in your Maya, if you never did this before, is to set up correctly to import. So under import in here, if you click this little box, and if you go to OBJ here, if you scroll all the way down, make sure you have single object here. By default, Maya sets everything to multiple objects. And that means that your model is going to come like a puzzle. It's not going to be a solid model. It's going to be multiple objects. So make sure you have single object set and then edit and save your settings, right? So next time you import, your mesh is going to come always as a single piece. This is very important because if you're going back and forth between Maya and ZBrush, this can be a pain in the butt if you're doing it wrong. So let's export the selection again as OBJ. And then I'm gonna go to head new, and I'm gonna put just like, maybe like scaled, right? Head new scaled. So I'm gonna go back to my ZBrush. And first thing I'm gonna do, I have the head selected in here. I'm gonna duplicate the subtool. So I'm gonna duplicate, just click duplicate here right below subtool. And now I have head 1, right? So now that I've done that, I'm gonna click, we're gonna press Control, and then I'm gonna click any place here outside of the model with the left click. And then you're gonna see it masks everything, right? So now this model is completely masked. Actually, before I do this, let me just import. I duplicate the model first. Let me just import the new one, just to replace it to have the right scale first. So head new scaled, this one. So it should shrink a little bit. So this one here, now it's smaller than the previous one. So I'm gonna mask it, like I said, click outside, Control, and then click, so it's masked. And now I can actually show everything. So this guy, let me just make sure that nothing is masked. So they're all good. And then now what you can do, you click the first one in here, and you're gonna click Scale. If it's not centered, let me just like turn off the perspective. So P for perspective, you turn it off. So right there you see, right? You can click here or perspective. And then if you press Alt, you unlock everything, the controls, right? So I'm gonna press Alt, and I'm gonna click this little house in here. So it kind of goes in the middle, right? And if you have any accidental rotation, for example, in your pivot here, you just do the same thing, Alt to unlock, and then you click this little circle in here, and it kind of like resets the angle for you. So now they are all ready to go. By default, this one here, it's set this way. It has just a little box in here. If you click on it, you're gonna see multiple boxes. That means you're turning on and off the multiple objects at the same time to manipulate. So now I can actually manipulate everything at the same time. So the reason why I masked the previous one, the copy, is so I can have as a reference, right? So I'm gonna just like scale it. And again, we are trying to work with averages here. So it's not like a completely precise. So we are around 8.5 inches for the height of the face. So we're gonna move it around here, and that should be kind of enough. So from this point on, I can just delete this scale here, right? That the masked one, I'm gonna delete it. And now we are set to go with scale. So from this point on, let me just save this model. You have the option to actually save your tool, right? Like save as, like old times. But since a bunch of versions actually, ZBrush introduced the project thing, right? So we can save the project. I always save the project, and I normally turn off the undo history because this adds a lot of space in disk. So I'm gonna just save as, and then head base mesh, let's say. Actually, I'm gonna start saving inside of the project here for Stan. Let's see, Stan Winston right here. And then what I have so far, I only have a folder called reference where I'm putting all the pictures of Stan Winston. And you don't need to copy my structure, of course, but that's the way I normally do. I just create the folder called ZBrush. And then I put everything ZBrush related in here. And I create another one called OBJ, so for my export. And then all the other folders are created by Maya when I set up my project. So I kind of like, those are kind of like the ones I create. So from this point on here, let's start Stan. So Stan 1, ZPR, which is a project, right? So it shouldn't take too long. Actually, you can see here I have like 2 subtools. I have this one and this one, right? So this one here, I can actually delete the entire thing, because if you have a bunch of tools loaded in here, what's going to happen is that when you save a project, everything is going to be saved and it's going to consume too much memory. So if you're only working on one of them, so you can actually just delete the other ones. So I'm going to delete all. So now that's the only one. I'm going to save again on top of the same one. So it was like 11 megabytes, which is nothing. Let's see now how big it's going to be. So save as. So now it's 6, right? Because I eliminated that tool that I wasn't using at all. So now we can get back to business here. And then let's start with the move tool. And this is another thing you're gonna be showing a lot here, guys. Like my go-to tools, they have nothing fancy about them. I'm gonna use a lot of move tool and a lot of that little modify default brush, right? And then yeah, that's gonna be like a lot of it, and a lot of clay buildup. When I use the clay buildup, I normally use a very low intensity, like 2 or 3 maximum, right? And then that way I can actually go like very, very thin layers like that. I can actually just add the form, because the default is a lot, right? Default is like you add like a lot of information, and I think like 2 is a good sweet spot. So for Stan, let's start like trying to find out like relationships. So relationships, what does that mean? For example, distance between the eye and the nose. And then you don't want to go like all over the place. You want to go like bit by bit and just find like relationships between like the closest stuff first, right? So just gonna go very roughly here and just try to find those relationships. So I'm gonna look at this nose in there, and I'm gonna find out that normally when you animate, and if you have like a long nose like that, normally like this entire bridge in here and also the cartilage, it doesn't move a lot, right? Like you're gonna have a lot of motion around the nostrils in here, so they're gonna go up when you smile. But this area here in the tip is not gonna move a ton, right? So what we're gonna be doing, I'm gonna try to keep this one locked for now, and I'm gonna just raise everything else, because we are working in this case here with the smile, right? So I'm just gonna go up. Let's see from the front. He has a very peculiar face and a very broad nose. Like that. Let's get that. And then his mouth is gonna be a tricky one because of that weird shape that I told you guys. So I'm gonna just move this up. And it's gonna look weird for a little bit, but hopefully you're gonna be able to fix it. Have very thick lips and very flat too here. Very interesting face. So at this point here, guys, it's mostly like there is nothing other than just observing what you're seeing and trying to capture as much as possible. As you smile, of course, like the volume you used to have in here, this is gonna come closer to your teeth, right? Because you're gonna have the stretch of the lips, right? They're gonna be stretching and they're gonna get closer and closer to the teeth. So like this beautiful shapes we had there before, they start getting a little bit more flat, right? And then of course, like we have our fold. You can switch to that guy, to standard, with that little modification I did before. And the interesting thing here is that some people have this fold very close to the nostril right here. And some people, depending on how they smile, this sometimes get almost like detached from it. And Stan is one of those guys who have it very detached from there. So I'm gonna start like moving this away a little bit from his nose. And then I'm gonna just mark very roughly here. Let me get the brush a little bit more. Very roughly, just mark what would be the angle. Like all those relationships, right? Like you're gonna look for example, like from squint, right? Like if you're smiling, you're normally gonna have a squint. Things are not detached. Sometimes people animate stuff without thinking about relationships. What's pulling, for example, like this is kind of like a system, right? Like you have like the system, like those cables are actually pulling everything up. And when you pull all those things up, you have like all these layers of fat tissue underneath and everything. And everything is gonna start getting more inflated, right? So I'm gonna try to build up that, that inflation that happens in there. First, I'm gonna just move this up. And it's gonna look ugly, and that's how we like it until we get the forms to actually look like something. So let me just eliminate this stuff that was in the model that I gave to you guys. It was just like kind of like a little bit of guides, you know, like for position of muscles and stuff. But like I said, you know, it's like nothing is absolutely precise, and there's kind of like a fast kind of deal. So let me just eliminate that. I'm gonna start building up, oops, clay build up. So the cheeks in here. So we're gonna get a little bit more of the volume around here. And you normally, like when I sculpt with the clay build up, I try to do like long strokes like that to deform, to define the main form. So like with alt and no alt. So basically like adding and removing form, right? And then after I do that, just to define the form as a broad shape, then I come with the brush in a different direction, right? Like the opposite direction. And I just go like using the pressure sensitivity, and I just add that volume very, very carefully. And just like very, very, you know, it's like soft touch. You don't go super strong with it. So this whole area here, I'm starting to fill it up. Gonna add that form, right? Like we were talking about, this is like, it's a bunch of cables pulling everything up. So I'm gonna keep going with this. This is gonna surround the mouth around there. And I'm gonna keep adding more volume. Around here. Again, like define the form with the broad strokes, and then go the opposite direction and kind of fill it up a little bit more. Of course, like the face, sometimes you can nail the face, and then if the frame of the face is not correct, then it's gonna be it's not gonna look like the guy. So it's very important, of course, like to go around and check like the shape of the, you know, the silhouette of the face. In his case is very, very hard, because like he always has this little beard in here. I'm watching it, I'm looking at him here, he has this beard. But I'm gonna try to imagine removing that. So his lips in here in relation to the guy we have, his lips are thinner than that. So we're gonna remove this volume. A little bit move brush here, like super simple. Just gonna remove it a little bit. And I'm gonna start stretching the corner. The corner is gonna go, actually, if you pull just the bottom part here, naturally you're going to create a little fold in there for you. So if you do this like smart, you're going to create a kind of like a natural little corner in there. But depending of the person, for example, in the case of Stan, he had a little bit of, like I said, a little bit of a Joker kind of mouth. So we're going to have to actually remove a little bit of this depth that I just added in there. But it's cool to see, just to get like some people are going to have exactly that. So we're going to change the shape a little bit. The inner part here, in his case, he has like it's a little bit more fat. So we're going to be adding a little bit of padding here inside. And I'm going to keep this at any time you can actually redefine your planes. When I give you this model, I had these little planes that I added in a bunch of spaces here just for you to see the form more clearly. But at any time, like the brush that I use, like is the H polish, you can actually redefine them. So with H polish, if you keep like an intensity, like, I don't know, 30, something like that. So if I add, for example, right here, right, it really helps to define those planes, right? So if you have like anything that you got a little bit too smooth, it's always good to actually go back and then just redefine those, you know, those planes, so you can actually see the form a little bit better. So let's keep going here. Like I said, like for the frame of his face is going to be a tricky one because it's hard to imagine without the beard. But I know that his jaw is not as strong. So I'm going to be removing here a little bit, and he has a little bit more of a thinner face down here. Let me see if I can just, it's hard for me to actually sculpt with the side to side on the same screen, but at the same time, it's gonna be a little bit tricky for you guys to see what I'm doing here without me showing the reference, right? So I'm gonna see that for now. I'm gonna just be basing on that. And you're gonna see like I'm not like the fastest when it comes to likeness. I see like some guys going like super fast and then nail the whole thing straight away. So like they get everything like perfect, like straight away. But at the same time, they kind of stop there, right? Like there's a lot of people that I see doing that. They are really good at nailing like the primary forms that they cannot take further than that. I mean, for some reason, I don't know if they are trying to avoid doing more work or something, or they have some limitation when it comes to that, but they just stop, you know. And I kind of like, I go by brute force. So I'm like, I don't nail like straight away, but by brute force, I keep working on it longer, I guess. And I end up like getting closer at the end of the day. So I'm gonna work on the corner of the eye here. And I'm going to define the top fold as well. Top fold, I'm going to just add a little cut in here because it's an overlap. And another thing I like about this little brush, like this little thin point brush, that sometimes if I want to create some lines just to define, instead of like defining a plane with H polish, like I said, I can just use this line in a positive way like that. And just like create those, you know, almost like defining it sculpturally, right? So I'm gonna just bring it a little bit more towards the corner here. And it's gonna be a little hard to imagine what's going on with his eye, but as you age, of course, you're gonna get all this gravity going on in there. Sometimes the best thing when you wanna try to get those eyelids a little bit deeper is to isolate things and just mask it, right? So I think this model, I don't know if he has a topology for that. Yeah, he does actually. This was actually Z-Remesh. So you see, like, I kind of get it in there. It's okay. So with that, I can just go here with the move brush, and I'm gonna get this a little bit deeper into the skull. I can actually mask this area here too. Let's see. Just switch here to mask pen. And I'm gonna mask, oops, I'm gonna mask this area as well. Just make sure I keep this. And I'm just gonna get deeper with that area in between. I'm gonna get from the bottom right here, it's easier to see. Eyelids are very important, man. It's so hard to get it right because of the folds. The folds have to look natural. I think with Dick Smith, I kind of got in a good spot that they have to look sharp. It has to look like the skin is thin enough, you know. So a little bit more form in there. And of course, like the eyelids, they're simply following the shape of the eyeball. So you have to always make sure that, you know, it's conforming to it. In this case here is a little bit high in relation to the eyeballs, but we're gonna keep working on it. And then in this case here, because it has a squint, what happens with the squint is that elevates this line here. So instead of like having this little line that's kind of low, this whole area here, especially the inside, is gonna start getting a little bit higher, right? So this shape gets a little bit flatter, and then the inner part gets a little higher. So you're gonna see happening as well right here. So this area is gonna get a little bit higher. And again, this is like an exercise of just like observing, right? Because I'm talking here, but you guys can see all this stuff I'm talking about. Like I'm actually just talking out loud here at this point. And then everything, like I said, it has to make sense. When you think about the form itself, like, you know, things moving, they are not by themselves. So like everything, when something moves, there's a muscle, it's pulling something, and that thing is colliding against something else, and it's creating those forms. So yeah, I'm gonna mute you guys in about 9 minutes. You're still in the doghouse. So let's see, I'm gonna add some more of the volume in here because we are following that structure you're talking about. One thing that is not very visible in there in the portrait, but normally happens, is that when you have this fold happening here, what happens is that it continues towards the nose. So it's gonna the form keeps propagating from here. You can see the curvature in there. So I'm gonna add more volume in there, right? And then it expands a little bit more right here. So this entire area gets more volumetric, and you're gonna start seeing a little bit more of a natural shape happening in there, right? And then you see like there's this little line in there. This line here, sometimes it disappears and sometimes it's very evident. So sometimes it's cool to actually reinforce it. So I'm gonna keep it going with this, and I'm gonna keep that little line in there. Also, what happens is that you know, there is the bone, right? The bone structure that's underneath. If you look at skull, right? I have my little skull in here. You're like, you see it? So little skull. It's a good reference. Always have like if you have a life-size one, great. But this one is a portable one. It's from Anatomy Tools. Pretty cool. So if you look at it, you're gonna see the little, you know, the little ridge in there. For the nose, and then what happens is that you actually, if I draw a line very strongly here, you can see it better. It's kind of like this, right? It's a line that goes that way. So as you age, a lot of stuff like starting deflating, right? Like when you're young, like you guys, not like me, things are like all like full, you know, it's like you know, it's like have all this nice forms in there. Everything is very rounded in a nice way. Not that you guys are fat. No, you're all very fit. But as you age, everything deflates, right? So you get this, you start seeing more of the bone structure underneath. You're going to start seeing more of the skull underneath, right? So as you age, you're going to start seeing more of this, for example, you know, it's like more of visible, that bone in there sometimes. And then that's the bone that sometimes, you know, it's like when you're not paying attention to what's happening, you're just trying to reproduce what you see in the pictures. Some people just add this, right? They just make that thing, and then it looks like, oh yeah, that's it. So, but you have to understand why that's happening and what's the right spot to have it, because that's basically like it's created by the, you know, there's a whole structure underneath it, right? So although it's not there, I can actually add it in here just as a reference, and also I can go back here and I gotta start building up this area here. I'm gonna zoom it a little bit and making it a little bit thicker. But again, I'm actually looking and trying to reproduce what I'm seeing in a picture that's completely flat, or like a lot flat, and it's gonna be hard. You're gonna have to keep like looking for more references in the course of the next days. and trying to get things in a way that I can actually observe the form from different angles, right? But for now, we are just trying to get like the overall shape of certain things in a good spot. So I'm gonna be moving the lips in here a little bit higher. He has this very interesting shape for his lips, like I said before. He has this area here right in the middle. It gets down, right? And it gets a square. So we got the little dimple kind of thing in there. I'm gonna just pull this one up like that. And I'm gonna keep going. And there is an arch that happens around there. It's very unusual shape. That's what I like about those characters, you know, it's just like finding out those shapes. And at the end of the day, when you do like a lot of portraits of very different subjects, naturally you start like building up this internal kind of like library in your head. And then, and a lot of times you kind of learn that there's no like rule, like I said before, you know, it's like those rules are pretty much like broken when you see like very unusual faces. So I'm gonna make this a little bit deeper in here. You have to make sure that you have enough depth, right? Sometimes the stuff like looks okay from the front. Oh, I'm gonna unmute all of you guys. All right. Yay! So now, I think you guys, let me just set it up so you guys can actually unmute yourselves and mute yourselves. So so we can play like you know, it's like you can keep muted until you want to talk, and then can you guys try to see if you can mute and unmute? Okay, cool, yeah. And then if you want to ask questions, then you can simply fire up, and we can talk about it. So far, so good. Like, how is it? Is it a little confusing or clear? Or... You guys don't be shy. We're all buddies here, man. Whoa, what's that?
I think that's me. Give me 1 second.
Someone was abducted by aliens.
Nice echo.
Yeah, right? Yeah, one thing I noticed, man, is like some people, they kind of like, they nail like one angle, right? So for example, like if I keep going with this one, maybe I can nail what's happening in there in this angle. And then you start turning around and you see some models like, whoa, it falls apart. So that's why it's important, like to find as much as possible, you know, like references. So this whole muzzle area here has to go deeper, for example.
Can I ask something?
Yeah, please.
From everybody, can you please unmute yourself when you want to say something? That way, yeah, that way they will prevent, you know, dirty noise.
Yeah, yeah.
Please.
It gets very noisy, yeah. So yeah, you guys keep yourselves muted until you want to talk and ask questions, and then you're totally fine. Right, so I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna start like carving a little bit of this dimple here. And you see like my intensity here, I normally keep like between like 8 and even 20 something. It all depends of, it's depending of the resolution, of course, of your mesh. Right now, it's like very low res. So if I use like a higher intensity, it's gonna really mark my model. So I try to keep low, like 8 or something like that. But one thing I do at the end, when I have the model already with a good structure, sometimes I reduce the intensity to something like very low, like 3, for example, and I use a bigger brush. You're gonna see what's happening here. See, like I can mark things without like putting a real dimple in there, right? It's just like, just to mark things a little bit better. Even like after you have the fine detail on top, you can just do that as well, you know, just to mark certain areas. So we're gonna start filling up this area here. It's interesting because, like I said, like if you have a neutral pose, the forms are completely different. Like you don't have to be too worried about, you know, it's like building up volumes and things like that, because everything is in neutral. But then as you go to a expression like that, and it's good for me as an exercise, you know, because I do a lot of very neutral faces, of course, like trying to keep them alive, like I said, but without too much concern about facial expression. So that's why I picked this guy here, just to exercise a little bit, you know, and try to come up with something that looks decent. You guys have any questions so far about the process here, or?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, something. I guess again, you just said you could. We could. Is this as low resolution as you go?
Oh, in this case here, I have one. It's a little bit lower here. When I build my base mesh, normally it's lower than this, right?
Okay.
So in this case here, I'm at 96,000. But I would say, like, if you have like a 40,000, half of this, you should be totally fine. Probably when I build up my final model, like with a nice topology and everything, I'm gonna make sure that I have lower than this, right? Because at the end of the day, even after you have everything in place, right? You have like all the fine detail, the tertiary forms and everything. You can always go back to this resolution here. And then one thing I do a lot, let's pretend this is lower than it is here. I'm just gonna go to my geometry, and I'm gonna turn on the dynamic subdivision. So if I click that one, so it smooths it out, right? So this way it makes this fake kind of subdivision for you, which is really cool, using together with HPolish, and then and with the clay build up, of course. And you can build up those forms and define, you know, things again, without losing all the detail we have at the top, right? Another way to actually modify stuff without losing the detail we already have at the top is using Elastic. And I didn't use a lot of Elastic in the past, but then a friend from ILM, he left ILM actually, Frank Gravad, it's an excellent modeler. He used Elastic, and I learned to use that, and I really like it. So for example, the Elastic, what it does, it builds up volume without destroying anything that's underneath of it, right? So instead of using intensity of 87, I can reduce to something around 30, for example, right? And then let's pretend this is all pores in here. So if I do this, you're gonna see the volume being built in there, but it's just modifying it without losing the detail, right? So this is very cool. Elastic, if you can use it combined with a low intensity like that, 30, it's very, very useful. Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
So you would start something, let's say, with Dynamesh, and then project whatever you sculpted onto a specific low mesh, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. All those meshes, those models you saw, the ones I have in there, like those guys here, right? They already started like from spheres, or not this case here. This guy here, I believe, like was done like I started 7 years ago. I don't even remember how I started it. But those guys here, all those recent portraits, they're all like from spheres, or actually the Giger has a time lapse in my Instagram showing the start with the sphere. This guy here, I don't remember if it was a cube or a sphere, either one of those. And then once I have like in a good state, right, that's kind of like stable, then I go and I finally like, okay, let me work on the topology. And but at this point, of course, I have a topology that's kind of like my go-to topology. And probably some of you guys already have some base meshes you start from stuff. But if you don't have, this class I think is a good opportunity, you know, it's like to just work on a nice topology. When I have this guy ready to project, I'm going to show you the topology I have, and maybe you can get like some ideas about it. But it's nothing that is unusual, you know. It's like it's the kind of stuff like you try to keep follow the structure of the muscles, and try to kind of like emulate that with your topology. Because at the end of the day, if you want to animate, that's all you're doing, right? It's just like you're stretching things, pretending everything they're muscles. So you keep the topology circular around the eyes. Some people create a slightly different, instead of like a circle, they add some topology to follow the top eyelids just to create this overlap in there, right? Some people just do the circle and then they add more geometry around that area as well. Same around the mouth, right? Like the muscles are very circular around the mouth. And then the nose is like up for grabs. Like some people do very clean, some people add more cuts. To me, when I started using ZBrush, it was kind of like I went from planning everything for deformation, kind of like in the topology, to creating something that's much cleaner. Oh, okay. Someone else joined us. So doing something that's much cleaner, you know. So I'm just gonna go over here. And then in the case of ZBrush, if I have a topology, I'm gonna try to keep it as square as possible, right? So this is like Dynamesh. So Dynamesh is great to start stuff because it's pretty much like, it does a great job, especially this new version of it. And this was for the base mesh. So probably if I Dynamesh now, it's gonna try to find those forms in there. So it's gonna look better. But yeah, let me just reduce that, get some more of the volume. Turn it off and then go back in here. Yeah, so there's like two different topologies for me. The first one is something for animation that you're gonna be very careful, and then something for modeling that you have to avoid as much as possible, like cuts and end guns and changes of direction. So if you can keep as grid as possible, right? Like the grid is like, it's pretty much what you need. So for the bottom lip here, I'm gonna start adding some volume in the bottom.
Can I say something? Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of the base model, is it possible for you to? I know this course is not about for creating basic shapes or standard base model.
Yeah.
If it is possible for you to prepare, for example, a quick video, like breakdown for preparing your way to prepare the base model. In this case, human face. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I start normally with ZRemesher, right? The thing about the ZRemesher is that it gives you a lot of stuff for free, even professionally. You know, when I'm working at building some model like Creature or whatever, I try to start with the ZRemesher, and then that's my starting point. I'm gonna get a lot of stuff for free. So, for example, like there's a lot of stuff that's ZRemesher is gonna resolve for you automatically, like the forehead. Sometimes you get some nice results, and then of course, you're going to start cutting things and then modifying everything, right? But then I can go over it, you know, like you said, like it's not going to be the focus of the class, but
yeah,
I don't mind like showing you, you know, it's like some of the tools in Maya, for example, how to cut those things. I normally work in just one side of the face. I always start symmetrically because it saves you a ton of time. That's another advantage of working digitally, right? You have like the advantage of starting everything symmetrically. And,
yeah, for example, that'd be great to see, you know, how you create the eyelids.
Oh, sure.
Eyelids and folds are great, you know, struggle for me to create.
Oh, yeah. And they are tricky.
Yeah, they are tricky. Do you use, you know, standard perspective angle or just, you know, custom one?
What do you mean, like for?
The standard perspective angle, you know, 50 degree, I guess it was in ZBrush.
Oh, you mean like the camera?
Yes,
the lenses, camera. The lenses,
because, yeah, because you sculpt in, you know, perspective mode. Yeah.
So I have the default here at 50. I can use like 85, right? Something like that. But for that specific picture in there, it looks kind of flat, but not quite. I don't know. Like it's something. I don't know if it's like it's more towards like 60 something. I don't know. I don't know if you guys are photographers. Maybe you know more than I do, but I wouldn't say that looks that flat, right? It has a little bit of a. So if I look from this angle here, I can see both ears. So it's not that different from this. So I'm gonna keep it 50, maybe like, you know, it's like I don't know if I can go like to 60 or something. I don't know if the ZBrush is gonna react to it. Yeah, let's keep it 60. It's like a good average in there. And then gonna start, of course, like gonna have to remove a lot of the volume. His ears have a different shape as well. So I'm gonna just pull it. And of course, like everything I do in my head, I'm actually averaging everything, right? Because at the end of the day, you're gonna have to start adding asymmetry and all this stuff. But for now, I'm just gonna average everything and try to pretend everything is symmetrical. I'm gonna keep going with the ear here. Just a little bit more flat towards the face. This little guy here has to come out. So I normally press Alt, right? Like Alt and then move. So you can actually pull towards the normals. So you can get that stuff.
And one more thing, would you consider to work in ZBrush with an image plane?
With an image plane?
Yeah, for us to, you know, to understand, you know,
Yeah, I mean, like
Compare the model with the reference image to understand, why you did what you did.
yeah. I mean, like I'm not against you guys using anything you need to use. I mean, like in my specific case here, I'm kind of like in my own little trip of trying to discover the form as I build it. So like my intention is never like to do like a one-to-one portrait of it's like the image I'm observing, but discover those forms. It's like every time I turn around and I find a new reference or something like that, I find something interesting about the form that I didn't know before, and that kind of adds to my internal library. And then next model I kind of keep that in mind. I was like, okay.
No. You get me wrong. I don't want you to to show us to model just in front of the image plane.
Yeah.
Just instead of the splitting the screen in half, maybe you can use the image plane to set it aside from the model.
Set it aside from the model. Oh, you mean like put it here inside of ZBrush?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant.
Oh, okay, yeah. Let's do that. The next session, let's do this
next
way.
Session,
yeah,
sure.
Let's do that way. Yeah, for me, it's like, it's kind of different, but yeah, I can do that if it's easy for you guys to see. It's yeah, definitely. So I'm gonna.
Because this way, the UI of the ZBrush looks kind of strange, because it's condensed.
Oh, but is it the proportions are bad?
No, but the workspace.
The interface. The interface. Yes. Oh, I see. So now that you guys already saw what I'm based in here, I'm just gonna move back to the other screen then, so it's actually easier for you guys. It's all this is like our first one. It's good to actually see what's best for you guys, and I can totally adapt here, no problem.
So if everyone else can hear me, what I did actually is I looked for the same photo that he had, and I have it on the third screen. So I have one screen, I can see him working, and the second one I have the vein segments and smiling.
Oh, okay.
So it just gives you a good reference. Is that what you were asking? Like you wanted to see some reference?
Yeah, it's like he was saying, like if you have something in the background here in ZBrush, right? So if you have it in here, like the image plane, then it would be easier to actually see here in the context of ZBrush. Yeah, but yeah. Because at the end, we're going to be comparing anyway. Oh, like I said, like for now, I'm going to be chasing this likeness for a while, right? But then one thing I do at the very end, when I have something that I'm kind of okay with, not completely happy, but okay with, I can simply do this. I don't do like a one-to-one image plane, like precise or anything. I just use this to actually compare and find out if my proportions are okay, which is not the case now at all because we just started. But the see-through thing here in ZBrush is amazing, right? Because you can make the entire interface transparent. And then that way you can actually move your model up. And then, of course, like with ZBrush, if you click any point, if I click the nose right here, and I just like rotate, so now the rotation is going to be around that point. And then you can keep rotating and finding those angles, right? If there is a little rotation to the side, you can press Shift and just rotate this way, right? So at some point, I'm probably going to do something like this. I'm going to look for those angles and distances. But at this point here, I'm going to be like chasing, because that's actually exercises my eye, right? So yeah, right now, like for example, if I tried to match, I would go for the eyes first, and then not knowing what's the angle of the lens, of course, is going to be always super tricky. But yeah, so yeah. But for now, I'm just going to ignore this altogether.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Hey, I was wondering, when you're collecting reference, do you find that there's any value in putting together a collage with different age ranges for the subject that you're studying, or do you usually just stick to the age that you're sculpting?
No, I think it's important, like anything you can find, it's like I kind of like, I didn't collect a lot, but one of them that I saw here, he was actually pretty, this one here. Look how young he is here. Look at this one. So you can have a certain idea about his face, right? But it's not like, of course, like it's not something I can. For example, for Rick Baker, I had to use some reference of him much younger so I could see the shape of his face. But then, of course, we're not taking into account the gravity and everything that happened after. But yeah, anything you can find, really. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's in different ages here. Here he has some more hair, right? And then as you go down here, yeah, this one here has plenty of hair. And then here, I mean, he has a haircut, but he has less hair as well. So yeah, it's important. Anything you can find, you know, it's like if it can help you, that's great. I'm gonna actually use this one here. I think this has a little bit. It's a crappy light still, but at least I can see the forms a little bit more. You know, that one is a little bit too flat. It's pretty similar though. That's what I mean about his trademark smile, right? Like, look at that. It's totally different pictures, but it's kind of like the same face and the same smile, right? But you see, like, for example, the information about the side of the nose right there, it wasn't very clear, right? It's kind of like, what is going on in there? And then you see in here, now you can see there's almost a wrinkle in there. That means that's a very broad area. That whole shape that I start building right here, right? It goes all the way, almost like towards the tip of the nose and the tip, you know? So yeah, all this information is very important. I mean, here as well, right? Like the eyebrow ridge as well. You can see a little bit of it, but here you can see a little bit better, you know. But other than that, there's a lot of very common things happening with his face. Let's go with this guy here for now. Just move to the other side. And, let's continue this thing. And again, I mean, like the class is gonna run for 2 hours, right? But I'm not gonna stop at 2 hours because, like I said, I'm a maniac, and I go to bed at like 2 a.m. So I'm probably gonna be working on this for at least another 2 hours, and then yeah. And I encourage you guys, of course, to do the same. You know, it's like if you can, not like, of course, don't go too crazy like I am, because I'm gonna die first. You guys gonna last for another 50 years. And yeah, so let me just maximize this.
Hey, Chris, I had a question.
Yeah.
So those extra 2 hours that we're not going to see, is that going to be recorded as well?
What I mentioned before, it's that I don't want to bore you guys with like repetition stuff. So it's cool. I mean, like I could potentially do that. But it's going to be basically like doing the same. In terms of technique, nothing is going to be added. It's just like more observation work, you know?
More refining, yeah.
Yeah, refining stuff. For example, like with the fine detail is going to be the same stuff. Instead of like, let's say if I spend a total of 6 hours altogether detailing it, right? I'm not going to film 6 hours of me detailing. I'm going to probably like erase an entire section of the model, and I'm going to resculpt it completely until it looks pretty nice. And let's say I do this area in about like half an hour or 40 minutes, right? After that is basically like, okay, so you saw how I do it. So from that point on, it's going to be repetition. So I'm just going to be repeating.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be like moving on to different areas. So it's not like totally different next time. Nope.
Not at all. Not at all. I want to cover everything with you guys. So I'm not going to be moving ahead and I was like showing up the next class with everything done.
Yeah. It's funny. I actually bought a tutorial a few years back, and it showed the process of some of these traditional sculpting. It showed it showed a lot of the block out. And all of a sudden it was finished.
Oh shit!
It was like, whoa. What's going on here?
No, that's not intention at all, man.
Yeah,
that would suck for you guys. I mean, like I'm pretty honest, and I was like, when I was mentioning, like I want you guys to take the most of this thing, and of course we have time constraints and everything, but within the time we have, I'm actually open to suggestions like how can we use it the best, you know, so you guys can take the most advantage of. Gonna be, you know, it's like all this stuff here is just like observation, right? Just like keep poking around the turd until you find something. But yeah, like I said, like sometimes the difference between having something that looks good and something that looks excellent is just the amount of time you're spending on it. That's the case most of the time, right? So you're gonna see a lot of like lunch crunch stuff. I make fun of it all the time. You're gonna see my Instagram, or not so much Instagram, but Facebook is a mess. I mean, like my Facebook is a mess, and I make fun of this thing about the culture of the lunch crunch thing, and people post like a model that's totally finished texture with the tertiary form and everything. Lunch crunch, like bullshit, dude. So yeah, I'm not that guy. I'm not that fast. So it takes me time, but at the same time, I have patience enough to keep going with those things for a long time, And I think that makes a difference at the end, because sometimes those guys are really good at modeling, but they just abandon too early. And of course, I abandon a lot of my stuff, but I keep going back to them. It's just because I don't want to get bored, I have this thing about doing the same job at work, it's like for to pay the bills. And then I have this job that I do that's just for fun, and I want to keep it fun as long as possible. It's like this entire class, for example. First, it's great to have like amazing artists in this class. It's a little intimidating as well, because I do a lot of stuff that maybe like people are gonna be like, oh my god, I don't do that way, So it's a little intimidating to do that way, but I'm kind of like in my happy place, it's like when I with people who are like like-minded. So it's all good.
Chris,
Right.
just one question. I've seen that you are working with a pretty high mesh. I mean, do you usually change the overall shapes first with a lower mesh, or do you usually work with 300,000 polygons? Is that a standard, or?
I like the feeling of the clay buildup. So when I'm building things, I kind of like, I normally try to emulate a little bit of the feeling of clay, So I think that's kind of my little trip in there. But I like working like in a very low resolution as well. There is a model I started, I think, which one is that? Let me see if I can, you probably remember, is that Oracle thing that has a bunch of spikes. And that one was basically like, I tried to push as far as possible with a very, very low resolution mesh. And by very low was very, very low. It's like you could barely see anything. And that was an interesting exercise, like to really filter and see just the basic forms. But in general, I keep it low, but not like super low. I mean, like this one is 96,000 now, and I keep flipping between this one and 300,000. But this is still low. I don't know if I got used to the pipeline we have. When I modeled Kong for Skull Island, the base mesh had 500,000 polygons.
Okay, it's curious because I usually work with quite high mesh, but when I started to work with Paloma, she's really good like shaping all the stuff with a really, really low mesh, and I started to work with lower meshes just to try to focus in the overall shapes, because that's the area that I was lacking a lot before I met her. So she was me always, okay, you should start with a lower mesh and start doing all the blocking and forget about all that wrinkles and all that like secondary and tertiary details. And it helped me a lot. But right now I'm back to work with 300,000 polygon meshes again, and it feels like more natural. I've studied like fine arts, and I started with real clay, and I feel like it's closer to that feeling, when I worked with a mesh a little bit higher, but I thought that I was wrong,
Yeah, that's what I meant when I say like the feeling of clay here, when I'm doing the clay build-up thing. I have the same feeling, It's like it feels more natural to have something that you can actually see a little bit of the form being built. It's like it goes like from person to person. I've seen like some artists, like especially like traditional artists, who actually are so good at blocking the main forms, the primary forms. Oh, it's a lot of noise. What's going on? Blocking the primary forms, that I've seen like when they work on the base mesh, sometimes it's super low res and looks freaking amazing. I mean, I think you can capture the expression and everything.
Yeah.
I think it's all exercise, right? Like when I was in college, like I went fine arts as well. And we did a lot of drawing of like live models. And then we had all those poses, right? Like you go like from 5 minutes all the way like to 30 seconds or sometimes 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And then see what you can capture within that, like within those constraints, right? And
Yeah.
then I think for this kind of exercise to me is the same, you know? You're going to be like, okay, so what I want to push in here, I want to learn more of my by primary forms, then I'm going to try to stick with super low res stuff.
Yeah.
If I want to have an experience that's more like towards like a clay experience, right? So maybe I'm going to push a little bit higher first. Or if, for example, like, okay, no, instead of that, I'm going to keep it super low so I can actually feel that I'm sculpting the primary forms instead. So yeah, it's totally optional.
Okay. And I have another question. It's about the base meshes or the projection that you are going to do after you finish all the blocking stuff. I haven't tested it yet, but there's a plugin called C-Wrap or something like that. It's
X-Wrap.
Yeah. And I don't know if you have tried it yet or
which one's that? Is it the plugin?
Yeah, it's a plugin for like doing a base mesh, you know, like a retopology and automatic.
Oh, I saw a video about it. It looks pretty awesome. It's kind of like it kind of animates the shrink wrap, right?
Yeah.
It is the best wrapping tool ever. It's awesome to work with, so I highly recommend it to you.
Oh, really?
Okay, that's great.
At least the production, we work every day with it, so it's absolutely worth using it. So go for it.
I'm gonna feel like a cheater. You're corrupting me, guys.
Okay, so we could use it for this head, for the portrait. I mean, is that okay?
Dude, anything you guys want to do, seriously. I mean, like what I'm doing here, the whole purpose of this is the fly on the wall thing, right? So it's this guy basically showing you how I do things, right? And then when I go to like classes or to conference and things like that, and I sit down and I watch like how some different artists work, to me, there's always like a lot of overlap, right? So a lot of stuff I know, okay, I don't need this guy to tell me how it works because that's exactly how I do. But then in between those things, you know, there's always like little insights, like little tips that you get. And I think that's the important part. So from this experience here, you probably like a lot of stuff, you're going to be like, okay, I have a better solution for that. It's not, I'm probably not going to use the way he's doing there. But then for certain other things, you're probably going to be like, oh, that's an interesting approach. Maybe I'm going to use that. And I think at the end of the day, and I was like, especially with as the level is higher, for example, you guys are all not all, but like mostly professionals here. A lot of stuff is going to be overlapped for you guys, you know. But I'm pretty sure there's like little insights as we go later on. Maybe not so much during the modeling side of things, but like with shading and things like that, you might get a lot of stuff, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Chris. Hi.
Hey.
I wanted to ask because I'm interested in basically everything. I always know that there is something to learn from each stage.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm mostly interested when we go in Arnold and shading and basically applying textures and rendering.
Mm-hmm.
Will you show like even the basic setup, or you will have a scene already with the light rig and basically reapplying the displacement, and you will take from there, or we will start even with, okay, this is how you basically set up your light rig very quickly, even if it's something basic, and then okay, we have the displacement already extracted, and now we're gonna apply the entire thing and render and start testing from ZBrush to Maya and back and forth. What's your how it's gonna be? I'm just curious, because this is what I really lack and suffer, like basically the rendering, the more technical stuff, and taking the stuff, like pushing them really. Not just the sculpting part, but after this.
Yeah, one thing that happened like during this, I think it was like in 2017 when I started posting on Instagram. And then in 2018, I started a series of portraits, right? And my intention was to actually come up with stuff that I could reuse so I could produce more, right?
Yeah.
So my intention is not to reinvent the wheel, but at the same time, I want to show you guys the entire process of everything. So if I'm going to go, for example, like, and I'm going to show you the shaders, right? I can start, for example, like showing like, okay, I start with the standard, blah, blah, blah. And then, but at some point, I'm going to actually refer to the settings I have working for me. For example,
of course.
The skin shader, for example, right? Like I have the right values and everything that work for my models. So basically, like I'm going to be opening all those tabs and showing exactly how things are set. Instead of like chasing those numbers again, I'm going to just like, okay, so for all those models, this is the average I use for them. It might, but definitely like all the like shader networks, everything is going to be open. Like, and since this is recorded, you guys can refer to it in the video, right? Like just pause and be like, okay, this is the tab, and let me just copy it and get the results. And everything I'm going to be doing, for example, like if I'm modeling, if I'm rendering here in Maya, right? That's basically what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to do some renders in real time for you guys. And I'm going to show, okay, so that's what you're seeing there. That's the result we are getting. If the shader looks a little bit like too front scattered, you have the option to change this parameter in here to make it a little bit more back scattered. You know, there is a kind of like a controlling in Arnold. You can kind of control more towards the back or the front scattering, right? So yeah, all kinds of stuff like and since we're gonna have this constant like open mic, like at least the second hour of each session, you guys can ask any questions, you know, during the session, like, well, why did you open that way? Why, you know, and we go through that. And since you guys were not here the last time, there is a plan to have like reviews for your work as well. So if you're working on something right now, it can be something you started before the class and you're just applying those new techniques to it, or it can be something new that you're doing during the class. We're gonna have the reviews every 2 weeks.
Yeah, so, I saw the session.
Oh, cool!
I was super frustrated. I missed the first one, so I watched the session.
Oh, no problem.
So it all sounds great.
Yeah, cool, man. So yeah, we're gonna be doing that, and yeah.
Yeah, nice.
I'm excited to have you guys here, and you know, it's like would be nice to see, of course, like amazing artists like you guys, you know, producing stuff and using even if a little bit of the stuff I'm teaching you guys. And by teaching, I mean, like I spoke about this in the past, like in one of my previous classes. I don't teach anyone, right? Like it's there is no way you can convince someone to change a political opinion or anything like that, unless they want to, right? And
oh yeah, of course. I think everyone's here for a reason, right? So
yeah, and to learn something, basically, you guys are gonna be teaching yourselves, and I'm just gonna be here, like, you know, like supporting you guys and trying to, you know, basically like expose you guys to stuff. Basically, that's my job, exposing you.
Hey guys, quick question. As we were talking about resolutions and stuff before, are you using it all the Sculptris Pro feature? Because I find I'm coming from clay background as well, and I for myself love it.
I use Sculptris for everything, man. It's so good.
It's genius, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. So you see the relationships in here, that's when we start getting in trouble, right? Like, so for example, the nose in relation to the fold in here is in a weird spot. So sometimes you end up like having to mask things, and then that's the best way to bring things back to shape, you know, so just mask it a little bit. Let me just get that one. Yeah, this is gonna be like a constant chase, like I said. Things gonna fall apart from certain angles, and then you're gonna have to turn around and then fix it, and then turn to the other side. I'm just gonna bring this one back forward a little bit.
If you can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. It's a little off topic. Well, it's sort of on topic. I come from the game background. Been working in games, and something with us is like the topology is like super sacred.
Yeah.
So we like sculpt like every character on the same topology.
Yes.
Does that happen in movies, or is it just a games thing?
Oh no, yeah, it happens like all the time. We have like a topology that it's the go-to one. So I have like a male and a female. I think most studios have something like that. And then like creature stuff, you know, it's like sometimes you can have a library. If you work in a bunch of projects, sometimes you just accumulate a library. Like you don't want to reinvent the wheel every time. So if you have a horse, you did it for a certain project, right? Then you're probably gonna want to reuse, probably not one-to-one, but at least as a base mesh as a starting point, you know, and save some time.
And off of that, like say you have a character that has some unique detail, like say he's got a lot of wrinkles, or say he's got a broken nose or whatever.
Yeah.
Would you modify the topology
to accommodate that?
To accommodate that, or would you not modify it because of animation?
It's like I said, like it's a different thing, right? Like if you're talking about production, then in production, we're gonna try to push as far as we can with the same topology. Because of everything is already set, right? Like you have all the maps and you have everything set for that specific model. So you don't want to, even if you're changing things, we want to be careful about the way you change so you can actually reuse a lot of stuff. But if it's a very specific character, for example, like the one I was talking about, like Kong, when I modeled Kong, the request was very specific. They said, we want to make sure that Kong has enough topology so we can have all the wrinkles, especially in the face, all in topology, right? So what I planned, basically, I planned the entire base mesh to have, okay, so if the model is going to have 500,000 polygons, I want to have half of that just in the face. So like the face had 250,000 polygons. So when you look at the making of, you're going to see like the wireframes for the face. Man, it's like, yeah, it's like massive. Like it's a lot of polygon in there. So depending on the character, if it's close-up stuff, then yes, you're gonna have to plan very well the topology, you know. But if it's like digital doubles, something, you know, then you can reuse a lot of stuff. It's actually preferable. But in the case of personal work, like the stuff I do at home, then I you know, it's like I can force things, right? For example, like if you have so much resolution like I have in those models with HD geometry, that means that I can actually push stuff. Sometimes I'm gonna have like an end gun, not an end gun, like a star in some spot that's very, you know, it's like I would not have in there for like an animation or something. But because it's still, you can actually force it, right? And then make it work.
What if you have a character like a werewolf transformation, or even like the Hulk? Would the digital double be the same topology as the Hulk or the werewolf?
Oh, possibly, yeah, possibly. Yeah, for the werewolves, I don't know, because like there's always like the movie magic happening, right? Right. I mean, like the movie magic is that thing. Like first time, this is a little thing that it happened to me, like at work. My first job at ILM was to model a transformer, and so they wanted me to model a transformer as a test. And I started it, and then my first question was like, okay, so the topology, should I make sure that, not the topology, but like the pieces, right? Should I make sure that everything makes sense? I mean, like, because you guys are going to have to transform this into that, and they're very different shapes. So should I make sure that everything falls into the right spot? And the answer was, no, just follow the concept art and make it look pretty. And then, and then animator is going to just do the magic, you know, not animators, the rigger is going to do the magic. And then it's all in the hands of those poor guys to do the magic, you know, and make it work. So, yeah, there's a lot of movie magic that happens out there.
Very cool. And I guess one last thing is,
yeah, sure.
Me coming from games, last Saturday when I asked you about the UVs,
yes,
you gave me this like crazy answer that was over my head.
Oh,
because you're like, I need to make sure that, you know, the numbers add
up yeah.
Stuff. And yeah, like when we do a face, it's just like, you know, one UDIM on the texture, you know, it's not like broken.
Yes.
So if you think you could possibly cover that a little more in depth, that would be really helpful for me personally.
Oh yeah, sure. So yeah, basically what I'm doing here, guys, is not going to change much, like in relation to the techniques I'm using. The brush is going to be the same, and I'm using the edge polish to define my planes from time to time. The elastic brush, not yet. The clay buildup we're going to keep working with, and the move. So it's going to be basically like clay buildup, move, and an edge polish from this point on. And I'm going to keep working on the likeness. But back to his question, just so you guys know it, it's fine. We can just like flip-flop here. I don't care. because it's all fun. So I'm gonna go back in here. Gonna just click the face for my Michelangelo in progress, right there. So if I go to, let's hide the other guy. I'm gonna click on this and then go to the UV modeling, UV editor. So this is basically like my UVs for this guy, actually for all of them, for all those portraits, right? It's just like very simple. And oh, from time to time, you're gonna notice that I'm itching my nose all the time. It's not cocaine, guys. It's just that my allergies are terrible. Like, you know, it's like it's a terrible season right now, and I keep like, it's like itches like hell.
I was thinking maybe that's how he stays awake.
Yeah, exactly. Chris is like, he's gonna come up with 3 new models tonight.
Yeah, you're like sculpting and scratching your teeth. Like,
guy doesn't sleep. What's his secret?
Good cover, man. Good cover.
It's this talcum powder I get from Bolivia from time to time, Colombia. Anyway, so my UVs here, the UDIMs, I have 5 UDIMs. And so the question that he is asking is basically, I came up with a very crazy answer for how I plan my models, right? So this base mesh here, if I bring up, let's see what time that is. We have 20 minutes. It's still good. So if I bring up the poly count in ZBrush, right? This model here, just the face, this is the medium resolution, it's not the super low. So I have 69,000 polygons, right? So let's do a calculation exercise here. So if I bring my calculator, let's get the specific number in there. So it's 69,304. 69,304. 69.304. And I'm going to multiply this by 4, each subdivision, right? 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. So basically, if I subdivide this mesh here multiple times, I can get to 71 million polygons, which is basically what I have for those meshes. This is the poly count for face and neck and shoulders. So basically, this is using HD geometry, right? So, but if I go and let's calculate what I need for, let's see, 69,304 again. And I'm going to multiply by 4, by 4. And you see, like, I multiply twice, like 2 subdivision levels. Whoa, someone just flushed. So, so one.
No, it was a car. It was a car.
So 1.1 million polygons. So that's what I get if I subdivide twice. And if you caught the first lesson when I was talking about, not quite a lesson, but I was talking about it. For HD geometry, you'd never subdivide more than 2 million polygons, just to make sure that you export those maps like super fast, right? So if I reach 1.1 million polygons with just like 2 subdivision levels, I have to stop in there before I go HD geometry, right? So that's the first thing. But you saw that I'm multiplying this by 4 many times. So.
One question: why do you subdivide 4 times in Maya? Like because the render will take it up till 4 subdivision levels?
No.
Render?
No, I'm not talking about Maya. I'm subdividing in ZBrush actually.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a calculation for ZBrush.
Okay.
So 69.304 again. So times 1, like 1 subdivision level, 2 subdivision levels, right? So. You see, like I'm just multiplying by 4 here until I get to that number. So now I can actually reverse engineer that, right? So let's say you guys, you're planning to have like a lot of resolution in the head. But I would not say like, don't pass 100 million polygons if you're sculpting like a head and shoulders, because ZBrush can handle only like 30 to 40 million polygons at a time when you sculpt in HD, right? So let's say you decide, okay, I'm gonna make it better than Chris Costa. I'm gonna do 100 million polygons for my head and shoulders, right? So you're gonna put like 100 million polygons right here. And then, oops, dang it. So 100 million. So now I'm gonna reverse engineer that, right? I'm gonna divide this by 4, divide by 4, divide by 4, divide by 4. Still too high for a base mesh. Divide by 4. 97,000 might be still too high. So if you have a mesh like a 97.6 million thousand polygons, that means when you subdivide this multiple times, you're going to reach the 100 million polygons you want, right? So I can go even further and divide by 4. So if you want to have a super low resolution base mesh, you can go for a 24.4 thousand polygons. So that's basically like what you have to plan when you're building your base mesh. There are lots of techniques you can use to remove edges and optimize things to make sure that you get like as close as possible to that number, right? So this is part of the planning that I said, like, okay, so how you plan your base mesh to have that level of detail you want in your ZBrush HD geometry, right? This is the first part of that question. The second part is like how you calculate how many UDIMs you're gonna need for this, right? And my explanation is a little complicated, but bear with me. So each one of those UDIMs in here, that's a square, right? And each one of those squares, if you are using like 4K maps, in theory, you could have like 16 million points in those 4x4K, right? So you have like 4K, 4096 by 4096. If you multiply them, you're gonna have like 4,000 times 4,000, you're gonna get this for 16 million polygons, right? So 16 million pixels information from ZBrush you can have potentially in each one of these UDIMs. But the thing is, like, if you look at my UDIM here, it's not 100% used, right? So I have just part of it used. And then the rest is empty space, right? You can actually do a very good job, a better job than this, and optimize and get more stuff in there covered. But in my case here, I can just like, okay, just make up a number and say, okay, I have like 50% of the space used. So if I have 50% of the space used, instead of 16 million polygons of possible polygons I have represented in here, in a 4K map, I have 8 million polygons now, right? Because 50% of the 16 million, right? So so basically this is talking about the 4K map. So that's basically like 8 million polygons. Now I have like 5 UDIMs, right? And if I keep this average, let's say it's like 50% of each one of them, that's 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. So that's basically like 40 million polygons worth of detail that I have for my HD geometry, right? But that's not enough, because now we are talking about 100 million polygons, like we said. Like, you know, it's like, okay, we're gonna go for 100 million polygons. How many UDIMs are gonna need? So you can just calculate that. So if you needed like 5 UDIMs here, and each one at 50% roughly, then you're probably gonna have to double plus 2 maps or something like that to get to 100 million polygons, right? Or you can simply switch to 8Ks, right? ZBrush doesn't care too much about like between 4K and 8K. The speed it spits those maps out is very similar. So that's why for those models I'm working, I always use 8K. I export from HD and 8K in ZBrush, and the speed is almost the same. So what happens when you have 8K? So then you calculate the whole thing again. So if you have like 16 possible million polygons in each one of those UDIMs, now you're gonna have 4 times that, right? So you're gonna have 64 million polygons, possible polygons in each UDIM if you're working with 8K, right? So if it's 64 million, half of that's 32 million. So if this is an 8K map, I have 32 now, plus 32, plus 32, plus 32, plus 32, right? So like 3 times 5, 150 million polygons, a little bit more than that, right? So let's say like 160 million polygons, right? So that's basically what you have potentially in terms of the detail you can bring from ZBrush. So basically, like with the 5 maps at 50% usage for each one of the UDIMs, you can potentially represent like 150 to 160 million polygons, which you should cover completely like any HD geometry you're gonna get for your heads. If you don't pass 150 million polygons, of course. It's always good to have a little bit more so you have some more room. Some people like using Mari, for example, and then it's nicer if you have a little bit more resolution and you can just tweak stuff in Mari if you are using that. But in this case, I think that's the only calculation I do. Like, does that answer your question? I mean, like, I can go over it if you need.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to try it. I've never really used HD geometry myself.
Uh-huh.
So that's, I guess, where some of the fuzziness comes from. One trick I use, and I don't know if you've ever tried this, is in Substance Designer. I like to sculpt my detail, my displacement map detail in there, and then re-import it into ZBrush. And I find that like I can get some really nice detail in there, because I feel like ZBrush is just a little bit muddy sometimes, whereas I feel like Substance is a little tighter. And I don't know. I think I'm going to try. Obviously, I'm going to try the HD geometry.
Yeah, the thing about ZBrush is that when you see the way that ZBrush, when you sculpt in it, you see all the polygons that are faceted, right?
Right.
So that's the thing, it's like they look sharper than they actually are, because you're seeing like it's almost like glass, like those little cubes like of glass, it's like in the surface. So everything looks much sharper than it actually is. But then, of course, like if you had an option to actually smooth out that super high resolution, because the machine is not going to handle that. But if you had the option, everything would look a little bit more, smooth. But I'm going to say, like, if you sculpt everything in HD, a lot of the detail, because you have so much surface, is going to look pretty much like it is in there. It's like if I show you my my models in ZBrush and then show side by side with what Arnold does, depending, of course, like the filter you're using in Arnold to render, you can get super sharp. You can look pretty nice,
Chris, can you reproject in when you have once HD geometry? How do you handle this one? Because I'm just not aware.
What do you mean?
Well, let's say something went wrong. I want to transfer some of the detail that I've already sculpted on an HD geometry from this model, let's say a nose or whatever.
Yeah.
And I really like that nose or something, and I want to transfer it maybe to the same model, but I tweak the topology or something. So I want to reproject the detail from the HD geometry that I've sculpted to the new mesh. How do you do that? Do you reapply the displacement that you've previously extracted?
No,
or there is a way to reproject?
I try not to use like any displacement re-imported into ZBrush, because it's kind of arbitrary. You don't have like a right number. You have to kind of like try to guess it. It's weird. So I try to reuse everything from HD. You can always like project HD to HD if you want. So if you have, perfect. So if you have like, but one thing you have to know about that is that if you go over 15 million polygons, like from 15 to 15, for example, projection, if you go over that number, it's a great possibility that your ZBrush might crash. So I would try to project like, let's say like between 10 and 12 million polygons at a time. Yeah. So if you have like an area, like you said, like just the nose, for example, you're going to be under that. Probably not going to have more than that. But you can definitely like have two HD geometries subtools of each other. One of the things that you cannot do with HD is that, for example, like you start a brand new tool, and then you want to import one HD geometry from another tool, that's one subtool of another tool, into this new tool. It doesn't work. It doesn't bring the geometry with it.
Okay.
So once you create the HD, it's basically like locked within that tool. But then you can
project, but you can re-import or something.
Yes, but there is a trick though. You can always like, for example, if you have a selection of a certain area, like I said, like if you keep it like under like, let's say 12 million or 10 million, you can have that selection visible in HD geometry. And then you can click make polymesh 3D. And when you do that, it bakes that area in non-HD. So basically it becomes a regular mesh just of that. Just that chunk.
Yeah, and you can break it down to different chunks that you can reproject them later on.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay, that's great.
So if you use polymesh 3D, you can use that trick, So,
that's awesome. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it has like lots of limitations, but it has lots of little tricks you can use with it,
Yeah, I mean, I guess, once you start really using it like you do, you learn all these tricks and you can tackle most of the problems.
Yeah, I think so. Comes with.
Cool.
So we are about like 7 minutes away, but you guys keep firing. I'm here for you.
Then I'll ask questions. So I see you guys are most of all, I think, working on a likeness. What if I don't want to do a likeness and I just want to apply all the techniques to some of my models that I can never finish and really try pushing them further? Is that going to be okay, or?
Yeah, this class here is that the whole purpose is the fly on the wall kind of thing. is that you guys are gonna observe how I work, and then anything you can get from that, like you use in your own work, you know. Sven asked me, you know, if it would be nice, for example, for him like to follow with me. So for example, he would have his Maya open and then ZBrush open, and he would try to mimic the stuff I'm doing like in real time. And I said, like, you can totally do that, but it's not like you don't have to. It's nice, you know, some people, they get more of this stuff by doing it at the same time. But definitely, like, use as much as you want, you know. It's like in some stuff, like I said, it's going to be overlapping with the stuff you already know.
I'll definitely like texture and render and follow all the steps. I just don't want to create another project and go again through the, you know, steps of sculpting and likeness and all this. I mean, I already have something like this, and I'll use all the techniques for like further detailing and basically giving that realistic look and soul and texturing and rendering. So
definitely,
and groom. So I'm super excited.
This whole thing is going to be like it's a all in all kind of, you know, experience. So basically, like, we're going to go through everything, and unfortunately, maybe later I can actually break those things up, you know, it's like in modules or something. But the thing is, like, that happened in one class I did in the past is that my agreement was to actually run the class just once, because it was kind of experimental like this one, you know. It's like I never know if it's going to look good or not at the end. And then I'm taking chances here, like making mistakes in real time in front of you guys and all that stuff, you know. But then the thing is, like, the guy said, like, oh, in order to make this work, you're going to have to run like multiple times. And I wasn't very comfortable with that because I was like, I feel like a cheat, you know. It's like I feel like I'm milking this whole thing, and I don't want to do that, you know. It's like, so my intention is to actually run just one time, and of course, like with this subject, and then the next one is going to be a different subject. Maybe some technique that I learned over this class are going to be applying to the next one, and, you know, it's like very organically. But try not you know, to milk too much. I'm not comfortable with that.
Hey Chris, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I have a question for you. In case I don't want to do like a human, like human face, or I'm thought about going through like just doing a creature.
Yep.
Did you think how's your feedback is gonna apply on this? I mean,
I'm gonna go with whatever you have. If it's a creature, I mean, like I'm gonna look for. It all depends on what you want as well, you know. It's like, for example, like you are looking for like making something that looks believable, you know. It's like in terms of shader or something like that. Then I'm gonna give you feedback about the stuff you want. If you're gonna go for something like, okay, so what do you think about the anatomy here? Like, it's something that's convincing, you know. Then I might, then I'm gonna go like, okay, well, the anatomy is really good, but maybe this thing here you just added doesn't make any sense, you know. Maybe like you're gonna have to move the shoulder blade like towards this direction here, so it makes more sense connecting to this or that, you know. But anything you guys want. I mean, like a lot of stuff I'm gonna know in a lot of stuff I'm not gonna completely know, but I'm gonna give you my personal opinion about it, you know.
That's cool. Yeah, because anatomy is on my I don't have a small weakness, anatomy, so yeah, I think going through some unrealistic creature, but trying to get like a anatomy, like real proportions, something like that.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks.
Sure.
Hey Chris. After heavy usage of, you know, Move Brush with especially smaller, you know, brush size, I end up, you know, having strange wave surfaces. And to make a surface, you know, on a continuous, you know, plane, I use, you know, Smooth Brush.
Yeah.
And but when I use Smooth Brush, you know, I lost the edges. And to define the edges, you know, then I make, you know, remake, you know, the edge, you know, with Trim Dynamic or Edge Polish. But it's kind of a, you know, vicious circle, because, you know, I cannot, you know, remove that, you know, strange waviness on a surface completely. Is this a matter of practice, or am I missing something in terms of, you know, technique?
Oh, you can use some techniques. I mean, like there are ways to mask by feature, right? You can create like if you go to the masking here, let's see, masking. And then you have like masking by features here. So you have by crease, for example. You can create some creases and help, you know, it's like to mask every time just the creases. Or you can simply like mask by hand, right? Like you can just like go in a certain area. If you have a crease in there, you just mask it. And then if you hit Control and then press Control and then click inside of it, you're gonna blur it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, and of course, like they have those other brushes. If you go to the Lightbox in here, and you're gonna see, let's see where the brushes are, brush. And then you have your smooth stuff here. I actually use just the default one, but they have all those smooth, there's a smooth crease here, groups, stronger valleys and peaks, right? Some of those, depending on the structure of your model, they might be more helpful, you know, they might preserve more of the detail you have. But it's a matter of like really playing with them and seeing what helps you the most, you know. But I would say like if it's something very specific, I would just like create a little mask and just smooth it around the mask, you know.
Yeah, great, thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Hi, Chris.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I have a tip for that. Ex-student of you, Rafael Souza. Do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's amazing, man.
Yeah, amazing. And very nice tip. He do that in the inverse. He turn on the double in the display properties, and he make a pinch in the opposite side of the model, you know.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so you go in the back of the model, right? Like if I have something like that, go in the back, turn on the, let's see, display properties.
It's a nice way to do that.
Double. Yeah, you know, I use this thing in the past to resolve like when you have like crunched geometry. So for example, like a crunched geometry is when you have something like this. And then when I use inflate brush, for example, I try to use like very, very low intensity, like one or two, right? Because if you have something like 10, that's the default. And you're gonna start inflating things, and you're gonna get right in this area here, and you're gonna inflate it, right? So I'm just exaggerating here, of course. But then it looks fine in here. But then you go in the back and look at that. That's all crunched, right? So, you know, you're gonna have to go to the inside, and you can just smooth it out from the inside to remove that. Because this is gonna be all like artifacts when in your displacement maps, and you have to avoid that. So now you remove that, right? So now when I go here, it's nice and smooth in there, but it's not penetrating anymore, right? So yeah, it's very, it's interesting. I'm just undo this. But guys, we are at 2 hours now, and basically what I'm gonna be doing is gonna be repeating the same steps until I get a little further with the likeness. And then, like I said, this is gonna take us a couple of days, you know, like to get something better. And then in the meantime, I mean, like you guys can either like practice with me in real time and just like check the screen and just keep working at the same time, or just like watch and try to get things in, you know.
Okay, have fun, guys. You know, I gotta go to fly too.
Yeah, man, you have to sleep, dude.
See you, dude.
No, it's already morning.
Oh, it's morning. Jesus.
Yeah, I gotta go to work, man.
Yeah, me too.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much, guys, and
thanks a lot, Chris. So see you later, guys.
Chris.
Very nice to see you guys. Have a
Thank
great
you, Chris. See you next time.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you.
Nice.
So that's here.